I'm President Deniz A. Erdal. Thank you for joining us for the 5th episode of the Fireside Cast, the only presidential podcast in Upper Arlington. Today, I'm joined in the studio by Phia Stayer. Hi, Phia.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks for having me on the program.
So last week, the Arlingtonian released their latest issue. I know you worked for a while on the Arlingtonian. Can you tell us a bit about the latest issue and what you thought about it?
Well, I thought the latest issue was very good. I liked the polls they put out. I thought they were interesting, and I thought the articles that they printed were pertinent to student life, such as the one on Hermie the janitor, who is a dear figure to, I think, most of the student body.
Yeah.
And the SAT articles as well, I thought were very good.
I thought it was very interesting how the average student spends more than $1,000 preparing for the SAT and the ACT. It seems very interesting.
It is, and that's a lot of money for a test it is a big test. But
Indeed. So, Phia, can you give us some insider insight into how an edition of the Arlingtonian is produced?
Well, Dennis, of course, I'm not a member of the Arlingtonian now, but from what I know with my work with it last year, there's a lot of work. Each of the individual reporters goes out, they do their own research, they put a lot of time into interviewing people and getting good sources and making sure that the writing is quality material and that everything cohesively fits together.
I see. And about how much time would you say goes into a single edition?
Well, they come out every month, so about a month each. They put in as much time as they can. The Arlingtonian meets one period every day, and they all put in as much as they can to make the paper what it is. And
so in regards to national politics, I know the Kavanaugh hearings have been dominating the headlines recently, with Christine Blasey Ford accusing Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct back when he was in high school. And a number of other women have come out accusing Mr. Kavanaugh. What's your take on this matter?
Well, obviously it's a very sensitive and current topic, but in general I do think that it speaks a lot, especially in the way the trials were handled, in death threats coming from both sides, and in the just intense political debate and the intense partisanship of how these hearings are being met. They're not being handled as simply a sexual assault case or a question of Mr. Kavanaugh's character, but they're also being extended to represent everything of the parties, and they're being extended to a very, in my opinion, not a very good place for this to go in terms of a Supreme Court hearing and a confirmation.
I felt like a lot of the hearing was extremely politicized, with a lot of the Republicans going very far to attack the accusers. For example, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina had a temper tantrum in committee, and I thought that was very interesting because when Senator Graham ran for president in 2016, he seemed quite moderate and mild-tempered. And here, having a temper tantrum like that, I found it very interesting. What's your take on that?
Well, I feel that the Republicans are under a lot of stress right now because they're combating time against the midterm elections, and they want to have Brett Kavanaugh confirmed as justice, but it's gotten to the point where it doesn't even matter if the allegations are true, and it doesn't even matter if he's not that great of a guy. And so they're being very forceful about it, and they're being very irrational in some ways about it, and so I think that's a reflection of how hyped up and, energetic everyone's getting about this issue.
And a number of Republican senators might have to vote no on Kavanaugh, such as Suzanne Collins from Maine, and she's facing quite she's not up for re-election this year. However, a lot of protesters were at her office in Maine throughout this week. And another interesting character is Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona. He originally was a supporter of Kavanaugh. However, under pressure, he said that he was in support of an FBI investigation into the allegations against Mr. Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I think it's good that senators are stepping up and making and advocating for this investigation, because I do think it's important not just to bring justice to Christine Blasey Ford and the other possible victims, but to also ensure that Brett Kavanaugh is a good candidate and of good character to be nominated to the most important court in the country for the rest of his life. And so I do approve of Flake's actions, yes.
I also wonder how the current case against Mr. Kavanaugh might affect some Democrats running for re-election in red states previously, before these allegations came to light. A lot of those Democrats, such as Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota, were expected to vote in favor of Kavanaugh because they're facing very tough re-election battles in states which President Trump carried by more than 20 points. However, now, in light of the current accusations, I feel like they might find themselves in a very tough spot, because the Democrat voters might punish them for voting for Kavanaugh, and the Republicans might for not voting for Kavanaugh. So it leaves them in a very tough spot, and I think it might cause a number of Democratic seats to flip in the Senate.
Yes. Well, as we've said, it's a very highly politicized issue, and it's a very hard place to be put in as a senator, because you want to keep your job, but if you like morally or personally don't feel comfortable voting for someone, you have to make that decision for yourself, and it's a very difficult position to be put in. And again, it just shows how extremely politicized the Supreme Court is becoming when it, and I mean, even if Kavanaugh, yeah.
And if Mr. Kavanaugh is eventually appointed to the Supreme Court, I think he will be seen as a political tool, because he made highly politicized statements in his opening statement in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he accused the Democrats of putting on a circus against him. And I think he will be seen as a highly political figure on the court. For example, previous judges, such as back when Chief Justice John Roberts voted in favor of Obergefell v. Hodges in order to prove the court's neutrality. And I think the appointment of Kavanaugh might change that.
Yes, definitely, because if he is even appointed, this controversy will follow him for the rest of his career, and I don't think many people will respect him for that. And I think that his highly politicized remarks and the highly politicized nature of his approval will definitely change the nature of the Supreme Court and how we view appointments and the way things run on that basis.
Recently, there has been quite a lot of controversy surrounding Tesla, the electric car company. It is currently the highest valued car brand, or the car company in America, ahead of GM and many other companies. However, they have been running behind schedule on producing a number of cars, such as their Model 3. And in August, Elon Musk sent out a tweet stating that he was going to take Tesla private at $420 per share. And so last week, the SEC filed a lawsuit. What's your take on this?
Personally, I think it's very interesting that the SEC would designate Twitter as a place to inform investors as a, viable source for that, because it really just shows the changing influence of social media in society, if you put that in context with everything. So, but.
And I believe they settled this week, and Elon Musk had to pay $20 million and step down as chairman within 45 days. He founded Tesla, and I don't know if Tesla could function as a company without Elon Musk, because I think what made Tesla Tesla was Elon Musk. He spent many nights in the factory, I know, working on the Model 3. And so I wonder if the newly appointed chairman will be able to bring in the same energy as Elon Musk.
No, I think that's a very valid concern. You know, Elon Musk is a prominent figure on the internet and in politics and really in every area, and he's done so much for Tesla, so much for the company. He's been a real innovator in so many areas, and I don't know if this will be detrimental for the well, I'm sure it'll be detrimental for the company, but I don't know to what extent yet.
Although Elon Musk does retain his membership on the board of directors, and he does get to remain CEO. However, in the past, Elon Musk has had previous controversies as well. For example, in the late spring in Thailand, he made a number of tweets falsely accusing one of the cave divers who were saving the children stranded there of being a pedophile, and those were proved false. And Mr. Musk received a lot of criticism for that, and so I wonder if this says something about Mr. Musk's character. For example, stating that he had enough funds to take Tesla private when he didn't.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that says something about him.
I certainly think it does, especially the pedophile accusations. That's a terrible thing for anyone to do, especially when it's false and unprovable in that sense. But I think, fame would get to anyone's head, you know, not to defend him in any way, but to say he probably has a bit of an ego and maybe, you know, he could have been joking, but it was probably not the best decision to make. But sometimes people can be blind to the consequences of things like that.
Indeed. So, back to our previous talk about politics. Politics has become greatly polarizing in the last couple of years. How do you think we can fix that?
Well, I think it starts from a cultural basis where our culture has become increasingly aggressive and increasingly set in our beliefs, and I think the art of compromise has been lost in a lot of ways. You know, in Mrs. Sider's government class, Eric Yasinoff came in and talked to us on Wednesday, and he was really preaching compromise, and I think that's good because even though I may not have agreed with some of his policies, I still found parts that I agreed with in them, and I could see that he was a good man who wanted the best for our country, and he was willing to compromise with the other side. And I think that's a very important thing to realize, that whether you're Republican, Democrat, something else, or whether you disagree on different issues, there's always something that you can find to compromise on, and I think that's really where our country finds the best step forward.
But it seems like a lot of the voters aren't really in favor of these moderate candidates. For example, on the Republican side, back in 2016, there were 20 candidates for the Republican bid, and President Trump, he got more votes than all the other moderate guys. For example, Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush, or some of the other moderates like John Kasich. And so, although a majority of the people might want a more moderate political environment, I think a lot of the voters within the parties are advocating for their ideology more than a moderate one. How do you think we could fix that?
I think it starts with the populace taking responsibility for themselves. You know, like even the founding fathers talked about this mob mentality where but to diffuse this mob, people need to take time and think. And I don't think people are thinking. They want instant gratification, and they want everything to be fixed. And I think Trump promised them that. He was not able to fulfill it, but he promised them that, and he put on a show. And I think that drew voters' attention and drew their support. But I think if the populace could attain a place where people are more thoughtful about their political decisions and where they realize that extremism is never the way to go, then I think that would help to mend some of the wounds that are caused by this divisiveness.
I see.
Do you have thoughts on this?
Well, I do agree with that. And I think it is also, you mentioned the Founding Fathers. I think it would be interesting to look at their philosophy of what our government should be. For example, a lot of the Founding Fathers, what they feared was an uneducated populace deciding the fate of the country. And that's why they put a lot of barriers in place so the people didn't directly interfere. For example, up until the 1920s, the Senate wasn't directly elected, and for example, the Electoral College to keep the people from directly interfering. I think what would help mend the issues in our country would be to educate voters about the government, to show them how the government works, to tell them that there's three branches of government. Because I guarantee you, there, at least a quarter of the American population can't tell you how many branches of government there are, yet they vote. And I think that's dangerous. And so I think what we need to do is educate the people, help them make an educated guess or an educated vote on who they think can run the country.
Oh, definitely. Voting is a very powerful civic duty. And I think with that power, voters have the responsibility to research their candidates and make informed decisions. So I think education would really go a long way in ensuring that the American population knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for joining the program, Phia.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Major funding for the Fireside cast has been provided by Serpent Cinematography,
TV Productions,
Evolved Turtle Productions,
the Combat Robot Kev Foundation, empowering robotics engineering since 2016.
and from contributions from listeners like you. Thank you. If you would like to sponsor an episode, please contact a cabinet member for further information.